spirit of matter. And this is actually already a Mars with Venus hour. And Mars is on the honorific degree of Taurus, applying to ingress Gemini and conjunct Sedna. So we got ascendant and midheaven ruled by Jupiter, with Jupiter in 12 degrees Gemini on the IC. And I wanted to look at Joe Biden's chart because I haven't looked at it in a while, and I know that there are going to be some elections. So let's see. We have Joe Biden, born 20 November 1942. Sagittarius ascendant, where the moon is right now. Okay, so the moon just crossed his ascendant. And you see, the moon always triggers, when you do a job like this, the moon is always triggering what the charts that you're looking at. So he got a stellium in Scorpio. And as for the axis of Libra and Aries, it seems like from a point of view where you just look at the axis Libra and Aries, there's nothing in there, but we got to look closer because Ketu is ruled by Venus, and Venus is right now with the ascendant, but from Scorpio, from the 12th house, and Rahu rules Mars, which is also in the 12th house. So that eclipses back and forth is leading him to the house of where you surrender things. But let's just say it's a house of isolation. It's a house of loss, of grief. There is miraculous healing associated with the 12th house as well. But first, there usually some things you just have to surrender. Okay, 12th house, for those of you who have been watching my Spirit of Matter back in the COVID days, then you know the 12th house is what you bring from other worlds, whether you're a scientist, a channeler, what you bring from far, far away into the consciousness as a public persona. But here he has Mars in the 12th at its home sign. The ruler for the midheaven also in the 12th. The sun, ruler of the 9th house, also in the 12th. Okay, conjuncting Venus. And Ketu with Chiron is in the 10th house. So I have to admit, Rahu with Chiron is in the 9th house. I have to admit, when I watch a chart like this, I would think that if this person is in some way public figure, is only if he is in jail, if he's remote from society, if he is in hospital, or some sort of, or hotels all the time, some sort of 12th house, because it's not given a public persona so much. The chart itself is all taken when he tries to go public, he either gets in jail, gets sick, loses something because it triggers the 12th house experiences. Okay, unlike charts where you have the ruler of the 12th in the 9th, in the 10th, in the 11th, kind of like my chart. Okay, you kick me sideways, I come up above you, maybe from the heavens, but if not, then on earth. But this chart is not giving that. It's giving a person that whatever they try to do to trigger the 10th house, the public house, the what I came here to do in life houses, okay, with the midheaven, every such experience is bringing them loss, bringing them ailment. And the ruler of the 16 to 12, it's a body-mind thing, okay? And so this is, I have to admit, it's quite a depressive chart, which requires a lot of spiritual surrender. And it's funny that I'm doing this after having gone through certain sort of kind of like ego death, mini ego, not like the rituals and stuff like that, but with Sun opposing Pluto, Sun in my moon sign, so it's kind of like an ego death, where you have to surrender things, address things, and then perhaps you can go on and find hidden wealth there. So this is very much 12th house. It's the house of ego death. And I guess it's only now that I come to talk about Joe Biden, because I was thinking, I was doing Trump, I was doing Kim Jong-un, I was doing Wilders, I was doing Van Meeren, Shinzo Abe. What about Joe Biden? What about the left? Okay. And something was building up to talk about this chart, and I didn't understand myself. I caught myself thinking, why am I not talking about Joe Biden? So it's very interesting that after an own ego death experience, I come to talk about this chart. This is, when I look at this chart, I see this is a person who came here to tackle the grief of the public persona, of the life mission. Someone whose life mission has to do with tending to tremendous grief. This is a person that can be a bit of an antidote, especially right now when everything is triggered by Ketu, by Rahu. He's been experiencing ailments of the body and mind. Okay? Whether it's on himself, his spouse, his children, and I know that he has lost, okay, to cancer and so on, and has considered suicide, I think he said once. And so this is a person that could be antidote to a lot of the health practices that we have. Okay, it's a person that may more than other people exposed to what it's like to be in hospital all the time, mental or otherwise. And I find it very strange when I look at this chart, because how come Joe Biden was like with the masks and with all these things? So at first it can come about from fear, his own fear. So it could be that he was genuinely buying the idea of masks and shots because he was in hospital all the time. And so from within the self, there's a process of going within and finding perhaps miraculous healing that can be an antidote to a lot of the WHO things that are happening. I'm not sure that this is going to be. There's a potential here that's quite interesting. I don't know if it will come about to the public, but but at the end he has Rahu with Chiron in the 10th house that again triggers the 12th. So unfortunately, the more he is known as public person, here president, the more he is known for his public persona. People are like, oh, this is a senile old man, or he is this, he is that. And I'm like, he's not that much older than Trump. He has Pluto 7 degrees Leo. Trump has Pluto 10 degrees Leo. He's not much older than Trump, but everybody talks about Biden as a senile old man. Where, first of all, we don't know. The fact that somebody is going through ailment, physical or mental, doesn't make them less competent to do something, sometimes even more, because they're exposed to where the world has broken down. And Chiron is a wounded healer, but the ruler again is given 12th. So either his doctrine will have to do with something of health, but there is some really, really big spiritual surrender here when it comes to leadership roles, when it comes to where he's headed, where it comes to Yeah. All these things in life. He has a moon in Taurus in the 6th house. So, with Venus again in the 12th, and what this moon in Taurus gave him, unfortunately, was Cancer. So, this is really a humbling chart. Now, this set of eclipses is still triggering all of his 6th and 12th house, all of his Scorpio Taurus. Okay, so and Aries rules his 5th house as well, and Libra 11th. And so this is where, when it comes to the goals and dreams, when it comes to children, this guy has to surrender so much and go through so much grief. That is just humbling. And if that is not enough, then you know that I talk about expandable children. And you know that I keep saying this is all across the board, okay? What the public people that we see, they breed them through certain bloodlines is unfortunately taken even from indigenous societies. So we can't say, oh, the elite, the colonialist, it is that is all they are inspired by indigenous societies, tribal practices that they have perfected, and with technology. So they try to do the thunder, they try to do electric shock, and all kind of really horrifying things that mess up with the sexual energy, the life energy, electricity of the body, okay, for people. And so when you have one politician, you say, oh, this was in a pedo ring, or this was that, or this was that. They all are going through Holocaust, which include being satanically abused, ritually abused, raped, tortured, raping, torturing, murder as children. So I want to say that as disclaimer. It's not impossible because Rahu is in Aries, and Aries was his 5th house. Granted that he's not going to have a baby, right? It's possible that the loss this time can have to do with a scandal, to do with such thing like pedophilia. I know this came about when he was running for the previous elections, and we saw footages of him kind of like, grabbing children in ways that the child did not feel comfortable, and he was not sensitive to the touch of the child. So really desiring the whatever closeness or whatnot for the child was not there. Yet another loss, okay, a grief or loss. And so here there can be another such scandal, but it can be that he's losing where other people are running the show and this and that, and he's paying the price of something that he and many people were involved with since childhood, and nobody actually tackles expandable children by exposing the Epstein list. If you want to understand deeper, go to Annika Lucas episode 9, Imagination podcast. Ronald Bernard, great source of information, and begin to connect the dots. Okay, begin to connect the dots. Free Mama from the Mafia, David Icke. Okay, but he had the video with Lars that talks about two leaders, one left and one right in Netherlands. They were both satanically abused and then performing torture. So this is important to keep in mind, because if we care about the children, we should tend to expandable children as a whole, both indigenous societies and not indigenous societies, because everybody want to say it's happening in that culture. Well, that culture is your culture with our lineage, and we need to tend to it in our lineages. But yes, I was avoiding Biden's chart because when I saw this, I saw he's probably going to be exposed for something like that. And that can be one of those fated events. So while other astrologers talking about the possibility of ailment, or people are even more to the doom and gloom, yes, the 12th and 6th axis, whenever something is activated in his chart, all goes to the 12th. Okay? And this is the house of hospitals and hospitalization. So we can, when we see a chart, we understand that whenever he is heading forwards to the public sphere, another thing arises. But again, very, very humbling. And if that's not funnily enough, that's not annoying enough for the soul, then Ketu is with is that the 4th house here? No, it's the 3rd house. Ketu is in the anaretic degree of the 3rd house, 29 degrees Aquarius, and Rahu is in the 9th house. So it's going away from his home, his housing, his family, and moving towards, okay, for soul is now moving towards leadership, public, career, and all of the above. And so his soul is going to deal with all of these experiences that are really annoying, really, really annoying. And where he's heading, there is a wound. So his soul is very likely a good wounded healer, but it's not like he's doing that from the public sphere so much. The big promise is that such person can be antidote or hidden enemy to kind of like health organization stuff, but I didn't see him going that route. Okay, he was pro the vaccine thingy. I didn't see him going that out. Then here's something that we need to understand. He is president of the United States, but he has stellium in the 12th house for the United States. I call this frenemy of the state. Okay? Because the 12th house is also house of hidden enemies. Why is it house of hidden enemies? Doesn't have to be that way if we treat people that are also in jail, that are also in hospital, that are also in poverty, that are also in all of these places. If we treat them with respect, then 12th house is no longer that scary. It's house of hidden wealth. Okay? And I talk about 8th house. This is going to be 12th house and 8th house. I'm going to talk about because 8th house has to do with betrayal. For him, the 8th house is Cancer, but the moon is in Taurus. So the moon is resilient at home sign in Taurus, not too far from its exaltation, actually, degree, but it's in the 6th house of health and ruling the 8th house. So 8th house is only betrayal if your economy is running on trust that is running on betrayal. Okay? I'm going to do a separate video about that later. Because it shouldn't be a reason that your lineage, your ancestors, what you share, let's say after you marry, the closeness, the energy that you share, 8th house is what you receive from the other. Okay? What you receive from the other. Shouldn't be no reason this would be a house of betrayal. Okay? But if the economy, if the savings are running on economy that's running on expendable children, now it's the topic of betrayal, harshest betrayal, okay, in children. Now you get these themes of betrayal running into your marriages and ancestral lineage. okay? And in his case, those themes of betrayal will express themselves in his health situation. So if he's following WHO, then he's been given the wrong shots. Then he's been given torture instead of cure for cancer. Then he's been given the wrong psychological treatment to keep him in the cult, to keep him. And what they do to these children that they breed, but later to society, is to keep them wanting to kill themselves, but surviving at all costs. And playing on these polarities, these extremes, activating the dissonance again of the life and death and again. So these people are perpetually susceptible to control. He does have Jupiter here on Procyon, Lilith in the 8th house, Uranus in Gemini in the 7th. Okay, so both him and Trump has Uranus in Gemini. Both of them are going to be of the generation who's going to play a part in social revolts when they arise. Okay, when clock strikes 12 and Uranus enters Gemini, then it's time for civil war. Okay, so and both Israel and United States have this placement with Uranus Gemini, different years, but it's still up and upping. So for Israel right now we have a big war, and they say "Beyachad nenatzach," okay, together we will win, and then clock strikes 12 and they're like, oh, down with the identity war of the country. Now let's go into another civil war. So will he be playing a part in the civil war? I'll tell you what, because his Uranus is the same Uranus as Trump, I don't think he will be in a different position. So it can be between one of them. Ascendant Gemini is the ascendant of United States. This is why I say a frenemy of the state, because it does have the ascendant. United States has 17 degrees ascendant Sagittarius. He has 3 degrees ascendant, okay, Sagittarius. So again, it's not too far from the ascendant of United States. But at the same time, yes, we don't know where it is heading, what will it be. And it doesn't seem like he's taking position, strong position against WHO. If he will, he can be assassinated, but I don't see assassination here so much. By the way, a degree of assassination, I don't see here. Degree of suicide, I don't see here. So considering suicide might be because of loss, but I don't see committing suicide. I could be wrong, because Uranus is opposing the ascendant that can give divorce, but it can also give something like that. As per degrees, not necessarily. So it's not, and for Rao and Ketu, it's 29. So this is another person that's just not unlike Trump, 29 degree of premonition. So he probably knows a lot about where he's heading, more so than others. Let's see if he is an eclipse child, because I think he's not an eclipse child. November 1942. Do we have eclipses here? I think we don't have eclipses anymore here. No, we would have to go a bit deeper. Okay. But for sure, for 29 descendant and Rahu, it's given. No, it's not the eclipse child, I think. No, it's not the eclipse child. But for sure, what we do have is a person that absolutely receives premonition about where he's heading. And people talk about the upcoming elections. Let's see what the transits are in his chart, because I talked about the eclipses. The trigger is 12th and 6th house. So people asking, will he be ill? Yeah, every time something is triggered towards where he's heading, unfortunately, that involves the process of experiencing some sort of mental crisis that is also physical crisis. And it could be shaman with this one, actually. But if a shaman right now is still with the WHO stuff, so I think that's not really compiling. Let's see the three giants. Okay, so the giants. There is Pluto, the beginning of his third house, beginning to be co-present with Ketu, towards his Pluto opposition that's happening in the 80s. I don't see that being too particular. That can activate the Saturn in the 7th. His Saturn is sextile in Pluto in the 9th. So it's given a lot of resilience, a lot of structure. I don't see that Pluto doing anything much. Some people say, yeah, 7th house, you can die too. It's house of graveyards. It's the house where people would meet each other on funerals, because people used to date and encounter each other on funerals. So that's why it was traditionally considered death house, but it's more like a marital partner date house. But again, you could disagree with me. Neptune in Pisces, at the end of Pisces, that would be his 4th house. It's past his IC. So if he were to die with his Neptune, I would expect it to be Neptune the IC. He is, again, of course, towards a Neptune opposition. So, but only when Neptune is in Pisces. Oh, Saturn. Saturn is on his IC. Why did I say that? So, no, I'm not saying he's going to die. Absolutely not. I'm not going to computate somebody's death. But Saturn in the 4th house can give such experiences. Okay, so just to put it out there, you need more significations, more perfections. I'm not saying it's going to die, but it's a difficult transit. Okay, it's difficult transit. He can experience loss to his housing, his home family, origin family, but also connect with ancestors and so on. Now Uranus at the end of his 6th house on a goal. He doesn't have any placements on a goal that are significant. So perhaps only midpoints, but which is significant, but it's not like the midheaven of Trump. That's just a goal finishing up with this kind of like giving him a lot of health experiences, but also liberating a certain energy. Okay, liberating, but this is way too personal. I don't know what he experiences from that, but this is a transit on the 6th, 12th that can totally change and transform your view and liberate the way you see the body-mind relations. Very simply put. Because it's happening in such a private house that's so invisible to society, we don't know of that. Although that would be interesting if you wanted to share with the public. I think that we could come to a lot of understandings, because he probably understands the medicine more so than most of us and most doctors. That's why I say could be great shaman with his placement. But the problem is that they train shamanic people by abusing them as children, and that's why we see all the gurus that rape children, or the doctors that rape children and so on, and torture them, because then that's too much. But it's from indigenous societies, not just colonialism, not just the elite and so on. So the big trees are doing the thing. Chiron is in his 5th house with Aries. Andromeda in this case can be correct to turn to Procyon. Very likely is already doing that. Saturn Aldebaran, I don't know, Archangel Michael can be okay. So yes, I have to agree with my colleagues. Absolutely, is likely that we're going to see another episode of Joe Biden with ailment. But there's something about this man that he can beat he can beat most people, because it's not new to him to deal with any sort of ailment. So I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, because he's ill, he's going to die, he's going to this, he's not competent. No, I wouldn't say that. That Saturn on his IC, I admit, it's given concern, but it's given concern not because he's sick, but because Saturn on your IC can mean that you're moving to the next phase in death. Okay, not necessarily. It can mean that your father dies, your mother dies, but at a certain unfortunately lost so much of his origin family, that can mean that he's coming to reunite with them, and this is not because he's sick. Remember this, it's not because he's sick. It could have nothing to do with the 12th, 6th. Have this transit for its time, and for us some other reason, maybe accident, maybe this, go there, but it's only one signification. It's not enough. You have to have it perfected. You have to have check what the high leg, check for many things that I don't check. I'm not predicting your death. But it's important for me to say that, because a lot of people like, oh, he's so sick, he's very likely going to, I don't know, croak. No, it's nothing to do with him being sick that he's going, or possibility of death. Nothing to do with him being sick or competence of being president. It's just a problem that he's going to spend a significant amount of time tending to his medical situation. Perhaps because of that, he can understand more than most what needs to be, but like all politicians, he's extorted. And again, when he believes the doctors, an entire nation suffers. If you think about the masks, or you think about other things, that I don't know why would he not be like seeing or knowing, but it's very likely extorted, and that can add to his grief. Okay, that he knows it's not the right thing to do, but forced to do that, or not forced to do that. Okay, it's extorted. So this is kind of what I see when the set of eclipse, when the set of eclipses touches Pisces, it's happening also this year, I think. Is already going to have Rahu in the 4th house, with Jupiter in the 8th house, birthing and death. So those are really big things, and I want to emphasize that his health situation has nothing to do with them. Okay, again, I don't know what will be, but granted that it's not increasing the family, there's something different. Okay, there's just something different that comes about here, and it's another health situation just because the ruler of Jupiter is in the 6th house. Okay, just because of that. Otherwise, no connection between that and ailment. We know that. So just to keep in mind. And so that is something for us all, yes, to kind of understand. But again, whether or what is this thing, I think he already has premonitions with 29 degrees Rahu. He knows where he's heading. He's had premonitions. With this chart, is personality that is sage. And again, I remind you, sage does not mean ethical. It means sage in the sense of a spiritual sage. Okay, there's a soul that is going through a lot in this lifetime or this physical incarnation. And from that place sage, Sun in the 12th house here in Scorpio is opposing Uranus, definitely is giving a person who's had multiple ego deaths, not just ego death. And as me, the broadcaster that has always resisted this ego death thing, what is this ego? Then I went for a tiny ego death. Okay, kind of, yeah. And it's not, ego death is not about being omnipotent. It's basically about where you need to shine. You need to acknowledge you need to shine. But where you need to shine is not being met, then you have an ego death. Okay? But it's not because you're not valuable or you're not intelligent or something problem with your personality. Is because this is a spiritual experience that you meant, I guess, to experience. And after that, I was like, let's talk about Joe Biden. The moon was just crossing his ascendant, and I was ready spiritually to talk about this chart. And again, you might be a beginner and you might say, Shirley, it's not ethical. Come on, what you say, this guy can die, this guy can this. Was like, I'm telling you the picture as I see it. And I'm telling you the picture of a man who sees it, okay? he's older than me. He could be my father. So, of course, he sees that. Of course, he experienced that. Perhaps it is even source of validation, acceptance. Yes, and that's. And perhaps the grace of knowing that about the project of expandable children before his death, and telling it like it is in the proportions of what it is, understanding that a child that grows into such holocaust, of course, will not know what touch is, what closeness is, how to meet those needs, and whatever juncture of medicine is met with what's something that meant to keep him in the torture state, of course that this would be the result. I don't know if there would be a scandal exposed or not exposed, but I think that this is at least the gift of grace that I could offer when I describe for the person. Yes. So as for elections, not elections, I remind you that ailment has nothing to do with death, and that 2 significations is not enough to predict death. Okay, 3. So, but still, okay, it's not enough to predict such thing, and that a running president, if you are voting for Biden, okay, a running president that is assassinated in the middle of the shift can be fully healthy, okay? They can be assassinated, you know, I come from Israel. In Israel, we had the king of Jordan passed in the days, and then we had Yitzhak Rabin. Both of them took a bullet. One had a peace agreement that still standing, even when the wilders are like, Palestine is Jordan, still standing. Okay? Like, that guy took the bullet, and he took the bullet, like, you know, if you have to choose your death, you take that bullet, and you say, oh, you take a bullet, that peace will be long standing for 100 years. You take that bullet, right? Yitzhak Rabin was trying to do something similar. Didn't work. So if you're voting for Biden, don't let any such thing change your mind. Don't let any such thing change your mind. Not ailment, not you will die, not die. If you vote Biden, vote Biden. Okay? If you vote Trump, vote Trump. If you think, oh, well, this is a sold game and so on, then to expendable children. Yeah, do something for yourself, not for your country, for your family. So yes, this is what I have to say. Will he win? Will he not win? I see activation of the 12th more so than the 10th or the 11th or the 9th. I see because it's Ketu on the 11th. But then, yes, it's Ketu on the 11th. I don't necessarily see that he's going there, okay, that he's going to towards another position, okay, for to be candidate. Okay, do I see it for Trump? I don't know. So again, just kind of trying to rethink the chart. Because Uranus is still on a goal, but then Venus is ruling Ketu, so I don't know. Okay, I have to say this. So I don't see anything that's particularly activating this chart, but who can know? Okay, there are more things that are at play here. For him. So I hope this episode reaches the right people. Well, you are meeting this from the right place, and I'll see